this, or any variation of these? Why is it bleeped out on the radio or television? There's nothing wrong with the word, it's just the connotations and context. Censorship is stupid. People use swear words to exaggerate their emotions or just what they're saying. It's basically the word really with exaggeration. I fucking love the beach in summer. I really love the beach in summer. Which of these sounds more exaggerated? The first one, right? But it's not okay to say that? In some creative writing assessments in school, poems, stories, even factual persuasive speeches, it's okay to swear. But when it comes to the classroom and recess and lunch, swearing gets you into trouble. Now let's link this to the real world. In creative assessments in school, students put their heart and soul into the outcome, sometimes involving swearing. In the music world, artists put their heart and soul into the outcome, sometimes involving swearing. Why then is it okay to swear in one, but not the other? There's censorship on the radio for people who don't like swearing, but what about the people in the class the students are presenting in front of? In my English class, there are 4 students who never swear. That's 1/7 of the class, or 14%. So let's relate that to the country. Let's say 14% of the country don't like swearing and don't swear. That's 3,175,000 people out of 22.68 million. It's not really that much. If they know a song has swearing in it, why don't they just not listen to it? If I'm listening to the radio and don't like a song that comes on, I turn it off or change stations. Should they not do the same? Should they not suck it up like the 4 students in my class did? It's never made sense to me why swearing is bleeped out on shows like Ellen or Jersey Shore. I mean, we can see their faces, we hear the start of the sentence. It's not difficult to know what they were going to say. Why not let them say it? It's not even children's shows. The reason our world is so into censorship is the bad connotations surrounding swear words. The next 2 slides contain images which may be seen as offensive. The C word is probably the worst word people can use simply because it's been given a bad reputation. It's like that person who went out and hooked up with this person and that person and is now a slut. The C word means vagina, yet it's been given such a bad connotation that it's become the worst thing to call someone or even just say. A friend of mine who swears on a regular basis will never use this word because of these meanings behind it. We, as society, and our ancestors have created these meanings behind these words that are unnecessary and the reason censorship exists. It's stupid though. The C word and dick are both slang for genitals. The C word is seen as the worst word, but they're both sex organs. Have you ever wondered why movies with nudity and sex have higher ratings than cartoon kids' movies? Let's compare 2 movies. Movie number 1. A man and woman become friends after the man gets a job at the woman's workplace. They decide to have casual sex, but end it because one of them wants a relationship. The man almost changes jobs, but the woman tries to tell him not to, causing an argument. They end up having sex and later become a couple, going on their first real date. Movie number 2. A prince is born. His evil uncle murders his father, the king, and takes over the land with his minions. The would-be king is blamed for the death and is exiled. He goes on a journey, makes friends, is found by his past best friend, and is taken back to the land to save them all. There's some fighting, fire, and another death, but he takes his rightful place in the throne. So movie number 1 is rated MA15+, while movie number 2 is rated G. Why are we exposing children to violence and death, even if it's cartoon form, but only those above 15 should be watching movies that involve sex? Now let's talk about sex and nudity. They're natural. All of your parents had sex for you to be here, and you all came out of your mom's vagina, or tummy if she had a C-section, naked. We're all going to have sex at some point if you haven't already, and we're all nude regularly. You're naked in the shower or bath. You walk around the beach in a bikini, which is half naked, and some of you sleep naked. If we all encounter sex and nudity, Should it not be fine for anyone to watch? The age people are starting to have sex is decreasing dramatically, with about 50% of 14-year-olds having lost their virginity. If they're doing the deed, why not let them see the possible outcomes in a non-documentary manner? Movies like movie number 1 teach viewers the consequences of their actions in real-life scenarios. These things can happen. A would-be king being exiled? Not in this century. This brings me to my next point, which may be seen as a gender equality issue. Why is it socially acceptable for men to walk around topless, but not okay for girls to even wear shorts without being judged for it? Let's take a look at the male and female bodies. The next slide contains an image which may be seen as offensive. Both males and females have breasts. These breasts on both gender have the nipples, areola, and breast tissue. Both males and females have buttocks. For some reason though, females' bodies have been sexualised. Women have had their breasts and buttocks to be made sexual even when they're in a non-sexual manner. Female bodies are designed to create breast milk to feed their children, yet in so many places, women are not allowed to feed their children like this. Our bodies have been so sexualised by society that we cannot feed our children. Does no one else find this horrifying? We live in a world where feeding our children is not acceptable, but buying them an iPad is. Oversensitive people find it horrendous for a woman to be breastfeeding her child in public, and because of them, these mothers have to suffer. The number of businesses who do not allow breastfeeding makes it almost impossible for mothers to go out. For the sake of our sanity, people need to leave the house and be sociable. These businesses are putting their potential customers' sanity and psychological well-being at risk, along with their income. If society didn't sexualise all our body parts, both businesses and mothers would not encounter this problem. Not only are our breasts sexualised, but our buttocks have also been sexualised to the extent where our clothing has such limitations that shorts class a female as a slut, skank or tramp because they're showing a bit of thigh or buttocks. A slut is defined as a woman who has many casual sexual partners, yet somehow it's used on a daily basis towards anyone who simply annoys someone else. This wouldn't have happened had our bodies not been so sexualised and censored throughout the past 50 years. In the 1960s and 70s, the hippie stage, women wore next to nothing and everyone was okay with it. Yes, prior to that, women had to cover their entire bodies to be seen in sensible dress. But we evolved. Women wore crop tops and shorts and weren't given these stupid labels. Swearing was a regular occurrence and everyone was happy. Violence is a topic of video games which tend to have higher ratings. For example, GTA 5 and Rise Son of Rome are both rated R. This doesn't make sense, as movies involving violence are available for anyone of any age, whereas these games are only for 18 or over. The censorship of our society is ridiculous and pointless. The only people who like the ratings on games and shows and movies are parents, because they don't want their children to be using or watching these things. And since they're old enough, they can watch anything they want. How many people actually listen to the ratings of these? How many people actually listen to the ratings of these shows and games and movies though? Not surprisingly, considering the number of you who own GTA 5 and the number of you who watch porn and the number of you who watch Game of Thrones, the number of people who pay attention to and care about the ratings of anything is very little. Being exposed to violence in this age isn't actually anything in comparison to the past. In 1998, as many as 300,000 children served in government armed forces or armed rebel groups, some of which as little as 7 years old. Today, there is estimated to be 250,000 child soldiers in the world. That's only 50,000 less in 15 years. How can people be so worried about their children being exposed to violence through a screen when there are children out there being forced to fight for their lives on the front line or being sex slaves? Censorship is not needed. We don't need classifications on everything. If you, as a parent, don't want your child to be exposed to sex, violence, or swearing, don't let them engage in these inappropriate activities. We need the opportunity to choose what is appropriate for ourselves, and no one should have the right to tell us whatever we decide is wrong. Part of deciding what is appropriate involves considering other people's beliefs and values. This is not censorship, this is making informed and appropriate decisions. What's appropriate with your friends is generally not appropriate with your grandparents or at a job interview. Think about it.